Hello, everyone. It is speaker number 17 of Markna 2023. Our sponsor is Aqua Illumination. They had a couple of their lights put into the raffle, as well as a Nero 5 pump. I think that was all the things. And we have raised $7,000 for Coral Restoration Foundation through this fundraiser. It's amazing. I am so proud of you guys for chipping in and trying to win these things. And then all next week, I'll be shipping out all the prizes to everyone. So thank you, AI, for being a sponsor. And thank you all for tuning in and joining us hour after hour through this entire event. If you haven't figured out by now, I'm Mark Levinson of Me Loves Reef. And we have on with us my competition. No, actually, I don't. This is Harley Finberg. And you know what? Harley is making little tiny things. And people say, hey, Mark, can you make me such and such? I'm like, can you please just ask Harley? He'll knock it out. He'll make you that tiny thing. And they're like, well, I just need this little clamp or this bracket. I'm like, Harley will make it. He's got a laser. He can do it. And and sometimes you pointed people to me like, can you make an overflow box that's bigger? And so we trade. So we're going to talk about acrylic fabrication and ideas and lasers. And I don't know, maybe I'll get motivated to copy him and compete with him a little bit. But for the meantime, I'm just going to keep doing my thing.
Well, thanks for introducing me, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm going to start this out by saying that I love your work, love the quality that you put out. You know, you are second to none when it comes to perfection. I've seen a lot of that comes out of your shop, and yeah, nothing with a wonky edge or a bad seam. So, that's, you know, as a craftsman, I can definitely appreciate the quality you put out.
I appreciate that.
So, yeah, a little bit about me. I have a very small background in manufacturing just because I like to create things. So before I got into actually acrylic fabrication, I was doing fabrication for two-stroke engines. So I actually developed my own race engine and was doing stuff for go-karts and stuff like that for a while. And it was really fun. But I had also been into fish tanks for a while, and that hobby was starting to kind of gain more of my interest at the time. So I started off by researching fish tanks that were first freshwater. We started just planted tanks and stuff like that with the freshwater frogs, and I just kind of got the idea of why not do the saltwater? You know, it's the natural progression of the hobby. So when I started getting into the saltwater game, I noticed everything came with a premium cost. You know, and I would look at some of the things like, oh, I can figure out how to make that. You know, that doesn't seem too difficult. So I had a little bit of manufacturing background with the two-stroke engine side, so I decided to play with some designs and make my own fish tank, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that's where, you know, it kind of all started, is just I needed something to do for myself, and made my own tank.
Yeah.
So kind of where it all comes from. The roots of everything that I make is for myself. I don't necessarily make things just because other people want them. I make them because it's something I can actually see a utilization for.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like how I conduct myself. My background with machinery. I started with working on some lasers at a friend's shop.
Nice.
You know how you get to go over there and use their tools, use their machinery, and it was really cool to see how things were done from an outside perspective, because having very little experience hands-on with the laser, I went into it, you know, knowing nothing. So, you know, everything from the design using the software I use called Lightburn, all the way to the little things that you have to set up for if you're doing jigs, if you're running multiple things, just really intrigued me. So I would go over to my friend's house and play on his laser for hours and hours at night. And you know how it is when you have someone, you tell them come on over, you know, you're happy to help them, and then they get to the point where they're over there every single weekend, you know, and they're taking all your time. So he was okay. It's time for you to do something on your own and take the sensor further for yourself. So he had a second smaller laser on the side that he had done some tumblers with, and he was like, you can take this and rent this from me, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, start doing stuff in your own garage.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to start pulling up some of those pictures I
Yeah,
actually
sure.
have in there. I don't know if they're labeled for you, but it will be the
We're gonna be
first
out of order.
shot. Yeah,
We're just gonna have to go with what we. Can we just put pictures up and you just talk about whatever's
absolutely.
up? Talk about your pile
Yeah.
of boxes.
So this pile of boxes
Yeah.
is a beautiful handcrafted box pile.
Okay.
Um,
Handcrafted.
pretty much what we do is we have to build things in, major production. So it started off by just doing one, two, three things, and now we have to have hundreds of boxes in
Right.
one place or another. So this is our main box pile right before we take it in production, pack it before
Mm-hmm.
it goes. Anyhow, where I was starting off, where I was talking about with that first laser is it was very small. It was 14 inches by 16 inches,
Mm-hmm.
just a step in the door of learning how to make things.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed just making things for myself. I think the aspect of being able to take something right from your computer and immediately see it cut and then build it just grabbed the attention of my ADHD wanting to see the satisfaction of it coming together right then and there.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that got me really going is I could see the work being done, and it was very exciting. So I started off with that small laser, and then transitioned into getting a larger machine. My next purchase for that larger machine was a bed size that had 24 inches by 40 inches,
Mm-hmm.
and this allowed me to do bigger projects, take on, start doing production style instead of just doing things that were one or two off. And that was just kind of the first big, okay, I can actually do something with this moment.
Yeah.
After that, I started to get into more of the hardcore fabrication side with learning how to use proper jigs that we
Yeah.
make or different clamps that we use.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of stuff is really where I struggled because I hadn't had the background of making a jig to do multiple.
Yes.
I'd always kind of done that custom, that one-off.
That's me.
So it was an interesting learning curve, figuring out how I can make things to do production style. And
Yeah.
I'm sure when you start getting something that works right, it'll work for a bit, and then find out that you've been doing it wrong because a particular step has caused you to miss something else, and
Right.
you go back and you learn from the step behind.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been having a struggle figuring out when I first started how I can make this to be a lot more even and regulatory.
Do you usually only work with 1/8 inch acrylic, or do you do some 1/4 inch acrylic?
So I mainly use 1/8 and 1/4 inch. I do some stuff with 3/8 inch, and I do some stuff with 1/2 inch as well.
Wow.
My first lasers, the 14 by 16 inch, could only really cut a 1/4 inch thick maximum.
Yeah.
The second laser I got, 2440, that could do a little bit thicker, like up to 3/8. And then we just got a new machine last week, and now we're able to go up to 1 inch thick.
Okay. Wow,
So
that's crazy.
exciting.
The reason I asked you that question, and I'm not trying to lead you, I'm literally just asking. I always work with actually, when I started with acrylic, I bought some 1/8 inch to make something, and everyone's like, "You're out of your mind. That's way too thin." And I was like, "It's holding water," and because I had made something that it should have been more durable. So within a week, I went and bought 1/4 inch and made it better, and everyone's like, "Okay, that's good." But I've been most of my stuff is 1/4 inch, and then of course there's some 3/8. But I never do 1/8 in forever. And I had someone request something very specific. I had to create these teeth to fit in a very specific tank that no one built ever again. And I said, I'm going to have to order some 1/8 inch. And I got to tell you, that stuff was the easiest stuff to glue in my life. I mean, I'm so used to 1/4 and I know how to work it. And I did the eighth. I
Yep.
was like, I didn't need to use pins. I was like, that's how you're building these darn things so fast. It's like, whoop, whoop. It's so easy. I'm like, why am I not making things out of 1/8 inch? This is so
Yeah.
much better.
1/8 inch is great because for me at least, I only actually glue on one side with eighth inch. We
Yeah,
do use the pins, but it allows
right.
you to not have to do the other side, so you can just glue it flush right up and get
Yeah.
that perfect.
No, it is so simple. I was like, this is fantastic. And I was super jealous of you for like a heartbeat. It's like, now I get it. Now I know what he's doing. Because
Well,
I never own 1/8 inch ever. Now I actually have to get a big sheet of it because someone wants me to make a giant, super light peacemaker. He wants it
mhm,
like 20 inches long, but 12 by 12, and he's going to use a cleaning magnet to hold it on. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I got to order the 1/8 inch. I don't know when I'm getting it. And he's okay, put me on your list. I'm like, all right. So I'm going
mhm,
to make him this one. Again, it's a one off. I have spent years before I got my CNC machine building a jig for every sump. So I had this
yeah,
one board that had a permanent edge with some screen molding, and then another permanent edge of screen molding. That was where my sheet of acrylic would go. And then the top edge and the other end always changed. Either it got wider, or here I'll switch this so you can see me. Um, it would either become wider this way or it became longer or shorter. I was constantly moving the jig over and bringing this piece in, and then I'd lay my
uh huh,
piece in and I would drill one hole 1 inch and I just take the router, and that was that
yep,
one. And then the next sump, I knocked the board off, moved it over 2 feet or whatever, 18 inches or 7 3/4 inches, whatever it needed to be, because everything was custom. And I had moved those boards a zillion times. It just looked like just so many puncture holes from so many times where I shot my jig together with a pin gun. And
yep,
people knew everything I built was custom for their exact aquarium. I never did any kind of bread and butter cookie cutter stuff where you just make 20 of the same thing or 50 or 100. Where you
mhm,
excel at that. You come to the show and you have like 90 of everything. And,
yeah. What's interesting is my name PNW Custom. I started by only doing custom stuff that like
mm-hmm,
I either liked for myself or was custom for that exact person.
yeah.
So when I actually first started, the first things I was making were all-in-one baffle kits
Mm-hmm,
for, like the Octagon tank.
yep.
So I made a few of those, and people would be like, "Oh, can you do this differently, or can you engrave this fish logo, or whatever, they specifically wanted." So that was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make everybody something custom in the world." And then you quickly learn that you can only make so many custom things in a day, and you can make 1,000 of these in a week if you
Mm-hmm,
do it production. So
yeah.
kind of learning like, okay, I have to say no sometimes, and when you start saying no, it almost opens up more doors for you. And at
Mm-hmm,
least for what I've learned is for myself, I've opened more doors by saying no to just doing customs and you know
right.
doing this is what I offer, and if this doesn't exactly fit what you're looking for anymore,
Right.
go over to Milev. He's happy to make that fit for you.
I'm gonna
Um,
have to start doing what you do and just say nope. I'll send them
you know,
back to you again. That would be funny.
right? Um, but I really did enjoy doing the custom stuff. I
Mm-hmm,
also built like I've done quite a few custom frag tanks, custom size, acclimation boxes and that kind of stuff. And
mm-hmm,
I enjoy doing it, but like I said, production wise, I know that I can keep my machines busy every single day if I
yeah.
make the same items over and over again.
Right.
Um, and it also is, helped me a lot with consistency because it has put our brand out to be consistently bringing the same items. You're expecting to see us with a micro tank. You're not expecting to see us with a 20
A
foot
bit.
tank at a trade show.
Right. Right. So what is this pile of parts that's on the screen now? What did that become? I don't recognize the thing with two holes.
So that was the very first like actual production item here. This is our mushroom box that I was making.
Oh. Yeah.
Um, those two holes that you see are for the magnet. So I'm
Okay.
making
Oh
for the
yeah.
magnet
Yeah.
using a piece of 1/8 inch
Mm-hmm.
for the to cover the magnet in the back, and a piece of 1/8 inch to cover the magnet on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So it just encapsulates that. You can actually see the little 3D printed pieces on
I
the
do.
right corner. Those were my very first jigs. so those just kind of held in the corners.
Oh, that's
Um,
so smart. I love that.
yeah, exactly. And so that was, just to keep it in place, and then
Yeah.
we'd glue them up, use the jig, slide it on, and clamp it down.
Yeah.
So that picture was the very first time I ever did like production. Like I think I did 6 of them, and I was
Yeah.
like, wow.
I made 6. Look, when I make 6 peacemakers, it's an accomplishment. That's a lot of work to make those things, even though
Yeah,
they're really simple, but they're so precise. And I have a video, I haven't even shared it yet, of the things I build. That's going to happen at some point in the next few hours, where it's like 5.5. It's my 5.5 minute commercial that I made about things I sell. And
that's
you're
awesome.
going to see the new sump that I just finished. I shared a picture of it on the table, but now you can see video of this ginormous thing with me standing behind it to give a sense of scale. So I
Nice.
get to see your laser now. Very nice. It's a Boss laser.
So this was actually the very first machine that I started on.
Okay.
Very tiny,
Mhm.
14-inch by 16-inch bed. So like
Yeah.
this is just to get stuff, going.
Right.
Um, that last slide you saw was the mushroom box pieces. That was like one of the first things that I was cutting on this machine.
Right.
So that's where it kind of all started. We can flip through some of the slides, and we'll see some of the other machines.
I thought about buying the Glow Forge because I heard you could pass through it and send a long sheet through it. But then it said, don't try to cut through clear acrylic. And I was like, never mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This was like some of the first designs that I started learning the software with. Lightburn. It's very intuitive.
Yeah.
Has lots of small details that you can learn
Yeah.
to make your life easier when you're designing.
Plus, you're putting your name on there too, which I like.
Yeah, this
Etchings.
was my first one, so it was like I was PNW Custom AIO, which is the all-in-one.
Right.
What I was thinking the first time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where it kind of started with the software.
Ooh, it got bigger.
At that. Yeah. So the machine here on the left is a 24 by 40-inch cut bed.
Yeah.
So that guy was my first real big industrial machine, and that's where it started going from. The last machine you saw was 65 watt. That one is 105 watt.
Wow.
So it's a bit of a power upgrade, and
Yep.
then it also is much faster for cutting, engraving, and all that good stuff.
Does that use like a crazy amount of power, like a 20 amp breaker or something bigger, or is it reasonable? Is it still plug into a wall like normal?
Yeah, that one's a 110. It's
Okay.
a fairly low power machine itself.
Okay.
I would say, yeah, a 15 amp breaker is completely fine for it.
Okay. My friend has
mach-
something sort of that size, and he had to hook a chiller up to his. Do you have a chiller
Yeah.
on yours?
Yeah, so the chiller just keeps the tube regulated for a certain temperature so that it doesn't exceed that and burn out.
All right. And then is there another machine behind it, the gray and white one?
Yeah, so that one is the one on the right. We actually just got that machine in the shop this week
Okay.
on Thursday and operational on Friday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that machine now has servo motors instead of stepper motors.
Okay.
What that means is it allows us to engrave much quicker, so about 2.5 times the speed that we were engraving on the Fox machine
Okay.
on the left. And then it also is a much larger bed size. So now we have 48 inches by 60 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting a little bit larger. It also has that pass-through, like you were saying, so I can pull the front of it down and fit a full 4x8 sheet through it if I need to.
Oh, it's that big. Wow. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was thinking if I had something where I could like take the front panel of a sump that I'm going to build and put my logo in the corner would be nice, or say Waterline. But I just never lasered it. I just never went to the laser. And more of your boxes.
Yep. More boxes, more production stuff.
Yeah.
Same picture. Looks like.
And then, by the way, I remember the days of using U-Haul boxes for shipping, because they weren't horribly expensive, but they do add up after a while.
Yeah, and they're just extremely strong. I've purchased boxes many times from Uline, and for the same cost as the U-Haul boxes, you literally can't beat.
No, Uline's actually expensive. If you haven't figured that out yet, I have a cardboard supplier. I've been buying from them forever, and and I probably could get from their supplier at this point because I buy so many bundles, and I buy
Hmm.
so many sizes of bundles. Matter of fact, they said, "Can you only buy in bundles?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna need, for example, every bundle's like 25. I need 12 6/6s. I need 12 12 sixes. I need 15 12 tens. I need 9 by 9 by 4s. I must have 15 sizes of boxes. And so then when my website got built, they said, "Well, what boxes do you use? What box do you use to ship?" I was like, "Which one?"
Cool.
So I told them
Yeah,
I have all these different ones for all these different products, and they were like, "Okay, well, give us the dimensions and what the weight." They literally wanted to know how big the box was and what did the box itself weigh. And I had to weigh a flat box. Like, okay, it's 4 ounces, it's 5.3 ounces, because they would add that to the weight to compute. But the website never picks the right box. No matter what somebody buys, it always says default 12 by 12 by 6. I'm like, how is this math working out? But yeah, I have way more boxes out there, and even then, it's never enough. Now I'm buying sheets of double corrugated cardboard, and I'm building boxes for specific items
yeah,
because I have a cutter for my machine. I can literally tell it cut, but I just use a utility knife. It's just faster, and I score it,
yeah.
and I fold it, and I use a hot glue gun, and I glue it with industrial melt your flesh off your thumb glue gun. And
Hmm.
sometimes I stamp them if I have the time to put my logo on there. And when I put it in there and they get it, they are like peeling it open. I mean, they're just like, "Oh my god!" And they pull out that item that could not budge, and they're like, "Wow, this thing is awesome." And I don't
Yeah,
want anything broken in transit.
yeah, that's awesome. I actually have some stuff that I want to talk to you about with transit, but I have had so many times where I have a box that is just a little bit too big, and then the next box up is way too, or
Right.
the two boxes too small. The next box up is way too big. So
Yep.
it's kind of funny. A couple slides ago with the boxes, that's just our shipping out that day boxes. So
Yep.
that's like under the table. We need to pull that and go.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous how many bundles we have of just stacks of, okay, these are the 12 10 8s, these are the 16 10 10s.
Yeah.
For each item, it has its own specific box.
Yeah.
And to top that off, every item has its own specific label. So
Yep.
now I have one frag rack that is our small frag rack, but that actually has 8 labels within that because
Yeah.
there's 4 labels for the standard, the different colors, and then there's 4 labels for the 3/4 inch magnet. So
Mm-hmm.
there's again 4 different color labels. So that's just, yeah, production style. Funny how
Yeah.
you go from having just, oh, I can get everything in a priority mailbox and ship it through that for free, to I need to have a box for every single item now.
Yeah. And then sometimes I want like a certain box that's not their regular. So, well, we can get it, but you got to wait 2 weeks. And,
Yeah,
and then I'll just say, look, just order it. Tell me when they're finally ready. I don't care. And they're like, well, we need to take payments. And I'll pay you. I don't care. I mean, just do it. And they make it such a production. And then like, now I need to pick it up. And like, well, can't you come? I was like, no, I'm going to wait till I'm going to load my truck because I'm going to. And I used to buy, like 40, $60 worth of packing supplies at a time. Now I'm going and getting $500 to $600 at a time, and that's
yeah,
including giant rolls of bubble wrap, giant bags of packing peanuts, all the cardboard, the sheets of cardboard, either single wall, double wall. I mean, I get so much stuff that and then I'm good for months. And because of my new studio building with my attic storage, and even then, because of my trailer, I hauled it all home in. That's actually a great place for cardboard. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to want to open the trailer and say, "Oh, look, cardboard." But if they
yeah,
just take the trailer, they're going to say, "Oh, what a bummer. We got a bunch of free cardboard." But I don't want to lose my trailer, obviously. But
absolutely.
it is a
Yeah,
storage spot.
I go over to the guys and pick up the cardboard stuff as much as possible too, because they're actually in Portland. I'm
Yeah.
here in Vancouver, Washington,
Uh huh.
right across the border,
Right.
and we sales tax here in Vancouver,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't in Portland.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, I try to go to there as much as possible and
Wait a minute.
save.
You should not be paying sales tax anyway, because
Well,
you're not selling the boxes. I mean,
correct.
you're a manufacturer. You shouldn't have to pay sales tax as long as you give them your tax ID.
Yes, but I do also purchase other things from them as well.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so it
Okay.
just depends, and I do have some of the stuff that I wouldn't. Also, like the plastic and stuff like that, I wouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so what did you
But yeah,
glue here? This was lasered. Is there anything that you have to like push out one at a time out of that there, or does it burn it out and leave you nice, perfect, empty holes?
90% of the time it goes right all the way through.
Nice.
Sometimes it doesn't pop through, and then you either have to do it by hand manually,
Yeah.
or you run the machine back over the spots where it
Oh,
didn't go again.
okay.
Um, this particular picture is using these big old clamps.
Yeah,
We have just about every size clamp. I'm sure you do too.
I do.
They add up. It
Yep.
freaking you get 5 of this size, 10 of this size, and it
Yep.
just keeps going.
And I bought the
So
Harbor Freight ones and regretted it. I like certain ones from Home Depot actually. I forget the brand, but they're blue with gold pads.
okay.
Yeah.
I like these ones here are I think they're the Irwin brand. They're blue
Yeah.
with the yellow pad,
Yeah, Irwin. Yeah.
and those I think may be the same ones.
Yeah.
They're great.
Yeah.
I found that some of the cheaper ones just don't have that clamping pressure.
No, they like
And
a
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So yeah, I really like these. I highly recommend, if you don't, sometimes I put a little bit of wax on the outside of the
Mhm.
pad, just because it can actually stick to the material. So that
Yeah.
helps a little bit moving
That's
it
neat.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have to prep your edges since they're lasered for gluing? Do you have to sand the edge to get the laser off, the shiny off?
absolutely.
Okay. See, I don't have
So
to do that. My stuff's all routed.
yeah, when you take it off the CNC, it comes out beautifully cut, nice
Yeah.
90-degree edge.
Mhm.
On the laser with how it's shaped, the diode is
Yeah.
coming in at a cone,
Yeah.
so it vertexes out. On some of this stuff, especially the thickness of the material matters.
Right.
When I start going above a quarter inch, you can start kind of seeing the vertex, and you actually will either take it through a planer or a router,
Mm-hmm.
or we'll stand it depending on the thickness of the material.
Right.
This one in particular, I think, was made with quarter inch there, so that one was probably just by hand sanded just to remove the polished edge and give it
Yeah.
a edge that's easy to glue.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, another thing I kind of wanted to go over too was the differences between lasers and CNCs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as you know, your CNC gives you a great, amazing cut, 90 degrees right off the edge. Uh, the biggest thing that I find with the CNC is that you have to have everything perfect. If you have any work holdings that are not tight,
Yeah.
if you are not set up and you move a piece, you pretty much can't go back with the CNC.
Right.
With the laser, you're almost always able to go back and redo what part of it. So that's one thing that's a nice thing about the laser.
Yeah.
However, just as you were talking about, the CNC cuts are so much better.
Yeah.
We use CNC. I bought a Shikoku 5, if you're familiar with that one.
Mm-hmm.
I bought one of those, and it gives great pocket cuts, and it also gives us amazing cuts for when we do like half-inch or thicker, especially when we're making some of our tank squeeze fat. And just the ability to pull something off the router and not have to touch the edge is great. It can be a nightmare coming off of an edge of a laser where it's completely polished and you're trying to get a seamless look,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to pull that all the way down. So, and when you pull it down, you're also changing the dimension of the piece.
Let me tell you something funny. So I've had my CNC machine for 6 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It came with this device. I've talked about my live stream recently, but I don't think you knew. I had this red thing that is exactly 4 inches high. It's how I calibrate where the bit is to the top of the table. And they told me, do not drop this thing. It is it's so important that this is protected. It is what everything's hinged off of. I said, okay.
Yeah.
I've handled that thing like kid gloves. I mean, I put it here. It's in a drawer. It's safe. I pull it out. I get my measurement to 4 inches. I set the computer to 4 inches. I put it back in the drawer. It never gets bumped. It's been wrong since the day I got it. It's been wrong by like 17,000s or 1700s or something. It's been wrong the whole time. And for 6 years, Minion has been so picky and such a pain in the butt. And every time I do something, it's like, now it's too deep. Now it's not enough. And I'm always guessing, well, what is the number?
Mm-hmm.
Talked to a CNC buddy who actually ran that machine before I bought it. And he said, have you calibrated that thing? It's like, I've never dropped it. I don't need to. He goes, you should calibrate it with your, I think it's called a micrometer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to do this really weird, clamp it around this weird device, and then I had to jam a screwdriver in to loosen a nut to adjust the dial on the front, and it looks completely wrong, but it's exactly 4 inches now. It's true. And now I tell my machine 4 inches. I do ref all home. For the last 3 weeks, every single time I run a cut, it cuts exactly. I had it wrong for 6 years. Now it's a breeze. I'm just like, oh my God, why didn't I know this for all these years?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was better.
We have
what a beating.
A bit setter on our CNC. So, you know, you put the bit in, and then it doesn't matter how high you put the bit in. It'll automatically change the height, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
However, I did crash the bit into that bit setter one of the first times I was working on it, and I left the spindle on, and it dropped right down into it.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
Shapoka sent me Carbide sent me a new one,
Nice.
and threw that on, and yeah, they were like, yeah, just pretty much don't do that again.
Yeah, don't do that. That's a bad idea. No,
Yeah.
I've broken a couple of bits in 6 years, like 2. So I'm kind of proud of myself.
Nice.
I don't have a lot of errors, but occasionally I'll do something like, oh my God. But I think 90% of my things that have happened out of weird randomness were because that thing was out of calibration all this time. And I think now my life's gonna be easier. I won't be planing the table down and down, trying to adjust for all the errors I've made. But it's still a temperamental beast, no matter how you look at it. CNCs are tricky.
Yeah, I've yet to break a bit, knock on some wood, because I'm sure it's going to happen soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very tricky. And one thing I've been having a problem with is we actually built a vacuum table for my bed.
Yep, that's what mine has.
Yeah, which is great, but the first time we built it, we I think made too many holes. So every time something gets cut out, I have to gasket between the holes so that the air isn't sucking just the space there.
All I can tell you is there are no holes. Well, okay, let me rephrase. I have a big giant slab of masonite that, I don't know, someone CNC'd that to build this CNC machine. Because it kind of looks like, it's weird. It's this grid. It's not like egg crate. It's not like literally eggs could sit in sockets, but it's something in between both of those styles. And then you lay a sheet of MDF on top. And the vacuum sucks the MDF down, and you put your acrylic on top of the MDF. You can feel the suction on the MDF. It's the weirdest thing. You feel your skin pushing, into the MDF. But there's no holes in my MDF. It's a solid sheet.
So then, what is how do you hold your acrylic down to that? Are you using
just set it on top, and the vacuum comes through the MDF. It sucks the acrylic straight to the flat MDF. Now, when you get your sheet of MDF from wherever, Home Depot, Lowe's, it's just standard MDF. You have to plane both sides. You literally have to put it through, flip it, and do it again. Because, and I've not made this mistake, but I was warned what happens. If you plane one side and okay, it looks good, it's dead nuts perfectly flat, you will go to lunch and come back and it looks like a banana on your... It does a thing because you didn't get the skin off of the board. So you have to plane it, then take the whole sheet off, flip it over, plane it again. Now it's perfect, and it does the perfect vacuum. And so my sheets don't move, but polycarbonate, impossible to cut. It is the most tricky stuff. Does polycarbonate cut good on a laser? Have you done any?
You can't. It creates mustard gas.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, with the laser, let's say the material 1/4 inch, you'd think you'd cut down 0.25. Well, I tell it to cut 0.235. And normally I do 3 passes, and I just tell it 2 passes. And while it's doing the second pass, I put my hand on the piece as it's cutting, don't you move. And you can feel things, because polycarbonate wants to vibrate, and it wants to vibrate right off the table. And I really don't want to start putting double stick tape to glue the stupid stuff to the table just so I can pry it off and peel the tape off. I just need the sheet to stay there long enough for the cuts, make the lids, get them off the table, and be done with it.
Yeah, that's what I've been using, is that double-sided sticky tape, the CNC tape. I use that for some work holdings. I find that it does leave a residue on the directly, so you have to do it on the paper.
Yes. On paper or skin, yeah.
Yeah, but it seems to work pretty good. I've had some of that stuff that it's man, you can barely move, the material once it's on there.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So some of the maintenance too that I find on my machine is like replacing lenses, cleaning mirrors,
Hmm.
those kinds of things. I try to do once a week on my lasers.
Hmm.
Take the lens out, wipe all the opticals off,
Okay.
and I find that if I don't, I will end up cracking a mirror, or sorry,
Mm.
cracking a lens or damaging a mirror
Okay.
at the worst time, and then having to take it apart,
Right.
in the middle
Right.
of the
Middle of the
job.
job. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So always kind of a problem. Something that I've kind of done in the last, I would say, just a few months to implement, having a better husbandry for my machines is
Hmm.
every day after, I'm done cutting, after everybody's, I have two employees, so after they're gone for the day,
Yeah.
I go turn my machine off and take the lens out and just let it sit out. That way in the morning, I know I have to wipe it down, put it
Okay.
right back in. So it
Okay.
just kind of leaves the end of the day's task so that the morning I come in and do
Right.
it and start it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, real
For
quickly, I'll
me,
kind of.
cutting different types of materials is such a pain. I mean, I know you're doing lots of types of materials like for one product because like you have the glowing orange with the black with the this with the that to make the thing. Where I might make something where I'm going to need this one like a peacemaker. It's going to be 1/4 inch of clear, and then I need 3/8 of clear for the top piece to be sturdy, so you can set it on the tank and it stays. And
Hmm.
it's a double job. And I'm putting a 4x8 sheet on the table. It's heavy until it gets cut down. And then if I need and then I need the polycarbonate lid that goes inside so the fish can't hop out. So it's
Yeah.
three different pieces of material. I don't relish those days, so I will probably do lids one day and do the 3/8 another day and do the box themselves, which is a billion holes because it's an acclimation box, or a
Yep.
well, I guess acclimation. It's a the peacemaker is a way to keep the fish from fighting for 3 days
Yeah.
when you're
You know,
introducing new guys.
I kind of try to do the same thing where like I will just do only things on black 1/4 inch, and that entire sheet is running, and
Yeah,
it'll do 6 jobs.
right.
Um, because if you are just doing every single thing individually, like it adds
Yeah.
so much more time.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, like you're saying, it sometimes gets difficult to congregate it all in. Like, okay, when am I actually going to cut this color?
Yeah.
Otherwise, this person's not going to get their stuff in time.
Right. Yeah. No, you
So
get it. All right. Well, listen, we're wrapping up on the hour. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we run out of time?
yeah, I had a couple of questions that I wanted to bring up real quick.
Yeah.
Let's see. It was what's some of your favorite jigs?
I love my 90s. Actually, I'm going to be
Hmm.
building a few. I make jigs all the time. So I've got like an adorable little tiny jig that is probably, I guess, 4 inches tall and 3.5 inches wide with a little gusset in there so it stays true 90 forever. And I will, when I'm building small things, I can just fling that thing there and I know it's always perfect as I'm gluing my little piece. But then I
Hmm.
have others that are exactly 5 inches wide because when I make dosing containers, and I'm making a box that holds 3 sections of 1 gallon each. This 5 inch jig lets me put the end in the baffle. I put another 5 inch next baffle, one more final baffle, and then I can glue it, become a box, and then I just top and bottom it. I've got normal 90s you could think for like corners of sumps and things like that. But now I want to make myself a 12 inch for a peacemaker where I can put the front piece flat, put this thing that's U-shaped there that's forever, put my end piece, let it dry, flip
Huh?
it, put the jig in the middle, flip it over, and just glue it down again. I want to make that one really badly because I make a lot of peacemakers and I keep doing this one at a time. I make sure everything's square, and it's
Yep.
just I don't want to do that. It's too slow. I've got to speed that one up because I make a lot of them.
Yeah. I can kind of see where, if you have that like this is the box jig, it throws it in. It makes it easy.
Yeah,
I'm a big
yeah,
fan of just simple corner jigs.
yeah.
Probably just exactly the same 90s. This is what we
But all
call
mine's made out
our.
of MDF, so I can clamp to it and stuff. But yeah, because acrylic can glue to acrylic. So like you have
Yeah.
the skin on there trying to avoid that. I get that, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've even glued jigs to my acrylic. The glue was I was doing the seam and a puddle went
Yeah.
and I couldn't see it, and then I pry it off and there's this horrible thing and I'm like, and I gotta get the sanding kits out to try and erase my mistake, or I just say forget it, get a new one, start fresh, throw it away. Or sometimes I see it in time and I just rip the piece off because that's still good, and take this piece and toss it and just start fresh. It just depends.
Yeah.
But I try never to put things out that look halfway messed up. I really aim for looking perfect.
Me too. Yeah, if there's a problem, I'm always trying to be the first one to find the problem so that the customer doesn't find it themselves.
Take her outside.
This is another one of my favorite jigs. It's a basic L, but we can bolt it to the table, which is super handy because then you can, line things up really quickly. You can kind of move it around depending on your needs.
Yeah.
It's got a tiny little corner in there, so you can also use it to get glue it through, and you're not gluing it directly to
That's
that.
nice.
Cool.
I don't have anything 3D printed. I've never 3D printed a thing. And I know there's benefits to it. I just haven't. It's another thing to learn, another thing I got to spend time on, another thing I got to wait on, another thing the spool went crazy and you have spaghetti. It's just like, let me just do this. And so I tend to make things out of wood. But I know, for example, when you're doing triple baffles in a sump, I've always felt it would be great if I had a couple little, like a thing that has a hook, flat, and I could just do my 3 baffles in a row. Bead, blue, that'd be fantastic. But I've never proceeded to get it printed.
Yeah.
And I could get Antonio to make me that if I just told him what I wanted. It's just always the last thing on my mind. I have a wooden stick I put between on each side that is exactly right with little feet underneath so it can't touch the glue. And I've been using those same 2 sticks for the last, 12, 14, 15 years. They're forever jigs.
See, that's funny because I rarely use wood jigs. I don't think I even have very many wood jigs because we do just 3D printed ones or acrylic ones that I make out of scrap.
Yeah. No, I hear you. No, if you came here, if you ever visit, you're going to see a whole selection of wood stuff. And they all get used. And as a matter of fact, I have this one huge block. It's a huge one. And it's heavy. But it also works as a stepping stool. I can put it down, stand on to work on a sump. But then I also throw it on the table, and I've got a 10-inch mark on the top. So when I make my power brick holders for, when you stack them and you hang them on the wall of your aquarium cabinet, I have to have a Velcro strip that will hold the power brick in place. So I have a roll of continuous Velcro. I go 10 inches, cut, 10 inches, cut, 10 inches, and I give them their 5 strips with their 5 shelf bracket. And so, I mean, everything's multi-purpose, where it's all going to get used at some way or another. Nothing is sitting around getting dusty.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we try to continue to use our stuff, and as one would, we continue to adapt and make new ones, and constantly try to figure out what we can do better.
Right. Another question?
Yeah. What software do you find is the most user friendly for your CNC? I use a lot of VCarve and just the one that came with the Carbide 3D, and it's interesting learning that and learning the different depths to it.
I'm using VCarve.
Yep.
And I've been using it for 6 years, and I'm not great at it. I mean, I know the general. But, to do your geometric shapes, I'm sure I could draw one and then clone it a zillion times. Just like I do all the holes for a Peacemaker. But I don't do a lot of curves and things like that. Everything I make is always rectangular, and I don't have, something that looks like an arch that could look really cool. I don't even want to figure out how to draw that, even though I know it's not that hard. And if I would just force myself to do it, and occasionally I'll do a rounded something here, but I'm just not good at that stuff. And so my stuff all has kind of a certain look to it. I don't know, it works. It lasts forever. The things don't break, and that's bottom line,
Yeah,
your stuff's artistic. I like the stuff you make.
Thank you. Yeah, I find that if I just continue to import stuff from Adobe Illustrator or from my Lightburn files, it typically goes into the VCarve very easily. But there's always things where there's multiple layers or depth cuts that's just not quite on there. And with CNCs, at least for my understanding, it seems like it's a lot easier to do a corner than it is to do a rounded edge in the software.
Yes. Listen, I made this new sump recently, and I had to figure out where everything was where it's going to go. So I basically draw the sump, 3-dimensionally, so to speak, in VCarve. I have a top-down view of the whole sump, I move every piece where it's going to go. Like I know that my first is my wall, and then it's going to go 15 inches to where the first baffle is. But I have filter socks right here, so I will draw a 3/8 thick acrylic, and then I tell it go 15 inches this way, and then I do my 2 7-inch sock holder bracket, and then I do the rail that's going to go in the front, and I make sure I still have enough space for that skimmer. Then I go for refugium, and I actually draw the little teeth from top-down view. I get the whole visual of everything, so when I'm doing my inner perimeter of my top piece, I'm looking at all of it, and then of course I can change the layer and say, okay, this is all just visuals for me, so I make it all blue. But the black lines are what I'm cutting. And so I have that, and I do that sometimes with certain things that seem complex. I'm like, I'm just going to draw the whole darn thing. That way I have my little overhang lip that's going to be routed off, and I'm going to go inside this far. I'm going to put my bulkheads, my bulkhead outer shape is this, my inner hole is this size. You know, I've got to make sure the threads are going to fit through there.
Totally.
And so I do the whole shebang sometimes because it gives me a nice visual, so I don't make dumb mistakes, because I don't want to just assume I'm going to get it right. Because it's going to cost me money if I have to throw another sheet of 3/8 on the table because I missed it by ½ inch or something horrible.
Yeah, well, thank you again so much for having me on. I really enjoyed just getting to talk acrylic and plastic manufacturing with you.
Yeah.
I will probably getting to see your shop in person too.
Yeah, you should. You should come here. But don't come in the summer. It's too hot.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to let you go because we got to get ready for the next speaker. We are going to end this stream right now. Make sure you guys look on youtube.com/Mueller'sReef for the next live stream. It's going to come up in a few minutes. See you later, Harley.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.